All right, hey family, this is your favorite coach, Coach Charles. Thank you for joining me in this video. All right, let's just talk about it today. All right, so there is a difference between building gym muscles versus building functional muscles. All right, now let me just say this off the bat. There's nothing necessarily wrong with building gym muscles, but when I'm talking about building gym muscles, I'm talking about going to the gym just to get a pump and just to get a nice workout and working on your major muscles such as your core, your chest, your arms, and not really working on functional strength. All right. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about building your gym muscles. Okay. Where you're going to the gym to look aesthetically pleasing. Now, there's nothing wrong with looking aesthetically pleasing, but we're living in a day and age where we don't need to just look pleasing. We also need to be functional, okay? Because when you are functional, this way, you have a lot of people who put on muscle mass, or I hate to say it, but bodybuilders that can't really pump out push-ups. Why? Because they're tight, they're not stretched, and they're really focusing on um, prime mover muscles. Now, your prime mover, like let's just say if I'm doing a bicep curl, your bicep is the prime mover. So a lot of people who are going to the gym to put on muscle mass, they're really isolating one or two muscles at a time, and it's okay, but it's not great. What do I mean that? What do I mean by that? When you go to the gym and you want to develop functional strength and functional muscle strength, then you want to work on compound movement because, yeah, isolating a body part, such as like a bicep, that's fine. However, your bicep have other surrounding muscles that need to be supported and that also needs to be developed. So when you're sitting on a machine, for an example, and you're doing like a preacher curl, your core is not engaged, okay? Your glutes are not engaged. Why? Because you're sitting down. So functional strength is what I know that we need to develop. Now, if you can develop functional strength along with looking aesthetically pleasing, then guess what? You won the Nobel Prize. You won, well, maybe not the Nobel Prize, but you won the trophy. And the trophy is you can look great, but you can also move great. All right. And speaking about moving great, I also notice, and I've been guilty of it too, but I do a lot more stretching now as I'm getting older. Hint, hint. But I notice when I'm at the gym, right? I don't have a gym membership currently. Now I had several. I have a gym here in my home. But I noticed when I would go to the gym, I wouldn't really see a lot of people stretching. And the people who I did see stretching were mainly the women as opposed to the guys. All right. And it's something to be said about that. You want your body to be in top notch shape and you want full range of motion. And this is why muscle equal armor is very important because stiff muscles can get you hurt. And also, you have people who are putting on muscle mass, but it's not really healthy muscle mass. What do you mean, Coach Charles, by healthy muscle mass? I'm glad you asked. Healthy muscle mass is when you could move fast with a heavy weight, or that's why there's hopefully I can recall, we should be training the body in elasticity, strength, power for those who want to put on muscle, hypertrophy, agility, speed, and I feel there's another one. I feel like I'm missing one or two more. But that is a whole compact way of training, okay? And also, it's more of a healthy way of training because, yeah, you use your arms to lift things, but your arms have shoulders, your arms have a back, right? And so when you train the body as a unit, then guess what, beloved? Your body function as a unit. And that's what you want to develop. Now, I'm not just talking about recreational fighters or MMA practitioners or combat sport. I'm really just talking about just utilizing your whole body. Like for an example, let's talk about proprioception exercise. I know that's a fancy word, but some of you do know what proprioception exercises are. Okay, but don't worry, I'm gonna break it down. Proprioception exercises are exercises where you're in a stable but an unstable condition, so to speak. Okay, let me give you an example. So if you're doing, let's go back to the bicep curls. I feel I'm picking on biceps, but let's just say you're doing a bicep curls. Typically, when a person is doing a standing bicep curl, they are doing it on two legs, right? But a proprioception exercise is when you're doing a bicep curl and you lift up one leg and now you're curling. All right. That changes the dynamics of your training. So when you're standing on one leg, guess what? You have throughout your body what is called stabilization muscles, okay? And stabilization muscles is when your body has mechanisms to stabilize itself. And also, for those of you who do want to lose weight and lose weight quickly and safely, it's always best to do compound exercises, okay? Because the compound exercises, according to the textbook, and I believe it's true, compound exercises is when you're moving more than one body part, which in essence makes the heart works harder, and when the heart has to work harder, then you potentially burn more calories. So that alone speaks volumes on why it's not necessarily always good to train one body part. Now, am I against training one body part? Absolutely not. Because let's just say, for an example, for my fighters, we will isolate the neck, right, to develop strong neck muscles. Why do you want to develop strong neck muscles? Because when you have strong neck muscles, first of all, you look good. Second of all, you can take a punch. And third of all, you won't get choked out so easy, right? And so your neck plays a very important role, not just in your day to day life, but God forbid, if you get into a fight, you're going to need your neck strength, right? So, in that context and in that instance, yes, I would isolate the neck muscles, right? So I'm not against isolating muscles, but what I am against is when you isolate muscles all the time and you make it a religion, okay? There is more body parts than just working on your core or just working on your legs. Your body is a unit. So beloved, let's start treating our bodies like a full unit. All right? So not only do we focus so much on the muscle fibers and developing our muscles and putting on lean muscle mass or just mass period, we also need to focus on ligaments and tendons, okay? Ligaments and tendons, all right, which is very important. Now, your ligaments and your tendons is what connects bone to bone. Yeah, I think there was a song when we were a kid. My knee bone connect to my hip bone connected to and then we would go down the body anatomy saying what bone was connected to the next bone. Well, it's really important that you develop joint strength. And usually, when people are at the gym, they're training in maybe one dimensional training, maybe two dimensional training, but you supposed to train in three planes of motion. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I remember my science textbook. All right, the three planes of motion is sagittal, the sagittal plane. All right, I'm going to break it down after I finish going through the three. The sagittal plane, then there's the frontal plane, and then there's the transverse plane. And a lot of people normally, when you're going to the gym, they're training in not all three planes of motion, and you're doing yourself a disservice. Okay. Now, what is the sagittal plane? Going back to the bicep again, okay? When you're lifting a curl, you are in the sagittal plane. All right. So think of my body and splitting it in half. the left and right. Any motions that are in this way or curling are sagittal. Okay. Now, when you um, go from front to back, right? So posterior, anterior. Okay. Meaning front, back. When you're moving from side to side, that is the frontal plane of motion. Okay. Like picture me jumping from one side to the next side, like doing ice skaters. That's frontal. Okay. Walking up the stairs is sagittal. Okay. I hope you're following me. Now, the transverse plane is when you're rotating, like taking a baseball bat and swinging, or any type of rotational movement. Normally, people train in the sagittal plane. How, if you don't believe me, next time you go to the gym, see how many people are training their frontal plane, like moving